Okay, now we've got our entity set up, let's go ahead and set up the repository. So inside the interfaces, what we'll do is we'll add a new interface and we'll call it iMessage repository. And what we're going to do inside here is define the methods that we're going to support inside here. And what we'll do is we'll add a method to add a message. So we'll say void add message, and we'll take the message as message, and let's bring in the entities using API entities, and we'll have void delete message, and we'll say message and message, and then we'll add a task so we can get an individual message, and we'll say task message, and we'll say get message and int ID, and we'll go ahead and use system threading tasks, and then we'll return a task, and for this one we'll use a paged list of type message DTO, which we'll need to create, and we'll say get messages for user, and let's bring in the paged list first of all. And then we'll have another task, and in this case it's going to be an IEnumerable, and this is also going to be a message DTO, and we'll say this is get message thread, and let's go ahead and bring in system collections generic as well, and this is going to take the int of the current user ID and the int of the recipient ID. And finally, let's add a task of a Boolean, and we'll implement the save all async inside here. So what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and create this message DTO before we go and add the implementation class, and we'll head over to our DTOs folder and we'll create a new class, and we'll just call it message DTO and press return. And let's go to our message entity. So we'll open up message.cs, and we'll just copy all of this into the DTO and remove the stuff we're not interested in. So let's copy this in, and what we'll keep is we'll keep the sender ID and sender username and remove the app user, and what we'll do is we'll replace that with a string property for the sender photo URL. And we'll do the same here. We'll add a string instead of recipient. This is going to be the recipient photo URL so that we can display the image of the user that sent the message. We'll keep the content and we'll bring in date time for date read. And we'll keep the message sent but remove the initialization of the date time, and we don't need to send back the sender deleted and recipient deleted. So this is going to make up our message DTO. And what we'll do, we'll go back to our iMessage repository and just bring in using API DTOs. And then what we'll do, we'll head over to the data folder and we'll create the implementation class for our repository. So we'll say message repository and press return, and we'll implement our iMessage repository and bring in the API interfaces, and then we can just go ahead and implement the interface. And what we'll do in here, we'll just initialize this with a few of these methods, and we'll also get our data context in here as well. So we'll add a constructor and we'll inject the data context and call it context, and we'll initialize the field from parameter. And all we're going to do is just implement the really simple methods. So for the add message, we'll say context and messages and add, and then we'll just pass in the message. And then for the delete message, again, super simple. We're just going to say context.messages.remove and then pass in the message. And for the get message, all we'll do is we'll make it async, and we'll say await and context, or what we need to do is return await, and we'll say context messages.findAsync, and we'll pass in the ID for the message. And we'll not worry about this one yet, or this one. And for the save all async, we'll just make this one async. And we'll just go ahead and implement this. And what we'll do here is just return await and context and save changes async and greater than 0, so that we return a Boolean from this as well. So then what we'll do is we'll head over to our application service extensions and get this in place as well. And we'll say services, add scoped, and we're going to say iMessage repository, and we're going to add the message repository, and we're going to consider this task done. So what we'll take a look at next is the implementation methods for this. But what we'll need to do first, actually, because we've got a big old DTO here, is we're going to use AutoMapper to help us with the mapping between this and our actual message. And we'll look at that next.